I'm not the biggest totals better, but it's something to keep an eye on. As far as tonight, we see both of these totals sitting under 37. We've got Houston, New England at 36.5, Minnesota, Seattle at 35 over at BetMGM. And yeah, we got a couple that are higher than that coming up tomorrow. But I also would say that I'm not going to look at a situation and say, okay, this is a closing total, so you've got to bet over if it's under 37. I'm also not going to go that far.
Right. And that's just it, is that while these trends, I think, establish a foundation for us, and I think that's a good idea, at the same
Yeah.
time, these aren't trends that you necessarily want to bet blindly. For instance, like the Vikings Seahawks game with a total of 35, this is one where I would say, you know what? I probably like the over here, in large part because you have one head coach in Pete Carroll who tends to take the preseason a little bit more seriously than a lot of other head coaches. You look at his preseason record, and it's 26-20. So maybe instead of just taking that spread, which we will talk about in just a bit, it may
Hmm.
be something where you go, all right, if Pete Carroll's taking this seriously and you've got two vanilla defenses out there, then it's possible you're getting garbage time scores, third string, fourth string quarterback touchdowns, something like that. And that's how you get to your over.
Including coaches that don't take it as seriously, like O'Connell, 0-3 last
Mm-hmm.
year against Vegas. San Francisco, they only scored 7 points against them. At Denver in the last preseason, I don't even know that you can call the week 3 the tune-up since it's last preseason game now, but they only scored 13 points in that one. So you have the Vikings in a span of 2 preseason games scoring a whopping 20 points, but then they go on in the regular season and they go 13-4. Yes, there was a lot of luck, but that 0-3 record and the lack of scoring from an offensive-minded coach kind of leaves you with the feeling that the Vikings don't care. At least O'Connell is not all that worried about the preseason, as opposed to the coach on the other side in Pete Carroll. So that's an interesting angle. As long as we're talking about totals, let's go back to the first game for a second, because this one's been
Sure.
dropping like a rock. That key number of 37, we mentioned it's under that number of 37, but just the other day it was 39. So the smart money
Mm.
is bringing that number down, because that's what's moving these markets days out from the game. They're betting the under on that, at least days leading up to the game, probably for a reason. Maybe it's a setup. I don't know. But I would be worried about saying, oh, well, you see what this trend says? Now it's under 37. Now I got to bet on the over. Now, the respected money has pushed this total down about a field goal. So I would be careful about that one.
I think some of the young players, everyone's been talking about Tank Dell, but I think John Mechie, coming off of, the situation last year where he had leukemia and kind of overcame that, but he was a really intriguing piece, second round draft selection that the Texans kind of went up and made sure that they kind of identified and locked into the fold. And I think being able to grow with some of those younger pieces at the skill positions while still having some, I would say, some veteran presence, specifically, left tackle Laramie Tunsil, who is very much still one of the best left tackles in football. They got Dalton Schultz as well. So I think the Texans are quietly going to be better from an offensive perspective. And I do think we're probably going to see that, in some ways even showcased tonight. And I do think that, it sets up pretty well for them to maybe be a decent spot to even bet on in the preseason with the Patriots and how close they like to keep things to the vest. It does seem like, D'Amico Ryan, everyone else, the fact that there is so much newness coming in here, we could see some extended run for some of these young guys. So I'm intrigued, especially this weekend, to see what CJ Stroud could potentially bring. And I do think that, it is a pretty decent landing spot for his overall skill set and something that could develop, I would say, quicker than what most people are projecting right now.
What we did was we put together who we think will make the National League and American League playoffs and what seeds they will have. And so I will start things with my National League bracket. And honestly, the difference between the standings right now and the standings that I am anticipating are not that different. The only thing that I really do have is I think the Cubs will win the National League Central, and so they will finish as the 3 seed, but they will still have a wild card series. Braves and Dodgers, I have 1 and 2. No real surprise there. Phillies would get the first wild card spot. They're playing well. Michael Lorenzen just had his no-hitter, so that matters. The Giants should get the 5 seed for me, and then I have the Milwaukee Brewers getting the last wild card spot, which goes sort of runs counter to something that I know I've said many times on this show, that the Central divisions are really out of contention for a wild card spot. Well, when it comes to the National League, I'm starting to feel differently because the Brewers and the Cubs have been playing adequate, if not outstanding baseball to be back in wild card contention. So I think both are going to make it, but I have the Cubs getting that 3 seed, Joe.
Yep. Our national leagues are very similar. I don't know that it's going to be the same once we get to the AL side, but national leagues almost identical. Atlanta 1, LA Dodgers 2. These are going to be your buys. There's no question about that. We've been in agreement for months on the show that the Cubs are going to win the National League Central, and they're going to be the 3 seed over on that side. I also plugged in Philadelphia as the top wild card spot. They're up by a game over San Francisco. Yeah, if you get this Lorenzen, and maybe you find something in Trey Turner over the last couple of months of the year, like that could be an incredible boost to this team. And we know about the experience. I think Philadelphia is going to have a strong finish to the season. They're terrific at home. So I have them as a top wild card. And I decided to go with Milwaukee 5th. So Milwaukee as the 2nd wild card spot, and then I put San Francisco 6th. So the only difference, Ed, is swapping 5 and 6. We have the same 6 teams in the National League playoff, just one little difference at the end. We both have Miami, Cincinnati, Arizona missing out, as well as the Padres, who still just can't get out of their own way. They lose again last night.
Putting together my bracket with this ensemble method, I'm a little bit surprised by some of the ultimate conclusions that I have, at least for right now. So currently, I think that the top seed in the American League will go to the Tampa Bay Rays. Despite the starting pitcher concerns and the overall injury concerns, I still think that the Rays can very well win this division because, both the Rays and the Orioles will, have some struggles down the stretch. So I've got the Rays at 1. I have the Rangers at 2. I think they are going to be the winners of the American League West. Then at 3, I have the Minnesota Twins. I'm going counter to something I know I've said before where I'm not sure they even make the postseason. But with the way the Guardians have been slumping, I think this is very much the Twins division here. Orioles are the first wild card team, so they have the 4 seed. The Astros get the 5 seed, and that is a dangerous 5 seed to say the least. And then the last wild card spot goes to the Toronto Blue Jays as of now.
You have Tampa 1. I have Texas 1. Put the Rangers. I think they won the deadline, and I expect them to have the best record in the American League when it's all said and done. Number 2, maybe it's my heart trying to win out on this one, but the American League East winner I expect to be the 2 seed, and I gave it to Baltimore. I gave it to the Baltimore Orioles, getting back on track. Right now what we're saying, it is Houston. It is an awesome team. I think they're going to be okay. Just get away from these Astros. So Texas 1, Baltimore 2 with the buys. We agree that the Twins win here, but I'll tell you, you're right. The Guardians are playing terrible baseball. I don't have a lot of trust in the Twins at all. There is that 4.5 game gap. I just don't. Can the Guardians turn around to the point where they gain those 5 games before we get to the end of the season? I just don't see it. Most years, I would say yes, but this year it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. Okay, so my first wild card I ended up giving to Houston because I think it's going to be really close between Texas and Houston down the stretch. So I have the AL West second place team getting the first wild card. Changing things up a bunch. I think this hot run for the Mariners continues, and I gave them the second wild card. So I have Seattle sliding up and into the playoffs, And I gave the last wild card as a bit of, we talked about it the other day, Tampa Bay missing out, and that's exactly what I decided to do. I gave it to the Toronto Blue Jays.
The Rays are not even in. Wow.
I bumped them out. I mean, there are some takes here. I think there's going to be this is going to be fun to watch
for Tampa Bay if that happens. An absolute free fall.
I have them out. You have them as the one.